There was an interesting story recently from uh, Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, about the nature of teamwork. I don't know if we discussed this before. I was talking about it with somebody. I can't remember who it was. And so um, there was a debate about what are the most effective ways to organize complex activities. And you got a big company. There are some activities that are, if you're putting a rocket into space, right? This is a pretty complicated activity to try to do. It requires thousands of people and years of planning and endless resources. It's really complex. And when you put a rocket into space, somebody or a team of people have to work on the calculations for how much energy is needed to put the rocket into space and what's going to be the
Mm.
trajectory and how it's going to fly and how it's going to come back down. And usually this work is carried out by teams of engineers, except in SpaceX, where it's not carried out by teams of engineers. The most successful space company, I guess you can call it, I don't know, rocket company, whatever. The most successful company in history in that area has those calculations carried out by one person. One person. One person is responsible for all of that, or almost all of that. And the reason for that is that it's faster to have one person do it. It's clearer to have one person do it. And you know where the responsibility is if you have
Mm.
one person do it. Yeah. So you have speed, you have clarity, and you have responsibility, which are essential elements in any working process. You need it to be done quickly because in business, what happens first matters. Limitation is usually a result of time pressure in business. Yeah. There's only so much that one person can do. Let's say you've got 100 boxes to move from point A to point B.
Mhm.
If you have one person, that's 100 boxes the person has to move. If you have two people, that's 50 boxes. You reduce it if you have, and so on. So in theory, the more people you have, the faster the activity can be carried out in theory.
Yeah.
However, what happens when these people stop and talk? What happens when these people have a lunch break? What
Mhm.
happens when these people disagree? What happens when these people explore different ideas and different ways of doing things?
Yeah.
Um, all of these things slow down. What happens if one of these people gets sick? All of these things slow down the process. And um, it, I think it's always worth considering, could one individual person find perhaps a better way of 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 doing something than the method which already exists. Now,
Mm.
what more people gives you is strength,
Yeah.
like an army, right? You got one soldier on one side, one samurai on one side. You have 100 samurai on the other side. You expect 100 samurai to kill the one samurai, um, just because of the 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 strength in numbers that exist there. But it doesn't always work like that, because what happens if 100 samurai have a sword, but the one samurai has a machine gun, right?
Mhm.
Suddenly, the the method, or you could say the technology, changes the the construct of the situation and the problem. And the you know any builder will tell you need the right tool for the right job.
Mm.
Yeah, you got the right tools, you can do the job very quickly. You got the wrong tools, and you have to improvise, or it'll take longer to do things. And 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 so there still needs to be forum for ideas and for Skillshare, which is essentially what, say, social media should be, like, YouTube instructional videos, or Facebook forums and stuff where people share things in order to help each other out, is the way that society should move forward. Or even things like where Twitter as essentially a media platform for people to express ideas or share information relative to their experience, not worrying about whether something is true or not, because I think that's completely irrelevant, because to be honest, everything is true. Right? And people always want to argue about what's true and what's not true. Everything is true. And so once that's understood, people can move on. But getting to that point is a little bit difficult. But the nature of one person and their ability to change situations, solve problems, the realization of the importance of the individual is it's fundamentally a Christian philosophy. Yeah. Without Christ, there's no Christianity, right? One person changes, or has the ability to change everything. And the power of the individual should never be underestimated, which is why when people have problems with people, they limit their own growth because they're not able to learn things. And the fact is, you can learn from your enemy more than you can learn from your friends. It's not always like that, but the potential is there. Our enemies tend to help us focus on what are the weakest parts of our character, where our friends tend to support or like with those parts of our character which are the strongest. And it's why diversity is essentially a good thing, but not something we should worry about, because individuality is far more important than diversity. And if you support the individual, you automatically support diversity. And so, as always, finding the right person for the right job matters, and individuals make huge differences, just as is seen when parents have children, and the child will very often change the adult's perspective on something in the world around about them, which is something that people without children sometimes, not always, but sometimes have a problem with. They have a problem with understanding that it's adults who create the problems, not kids, and it's kids are just trying to keep the adults happy most of the time, which is an impossible task, because despite almost infinite entertainment and infinite access to food and other social activities, adults still seem to be confused about what is the right thing to do. We still have ridiculous conflicts that we permanently need to solve and resolve. And that's a bigger, it's a bigger topic of resources and experience and economics and history that all come together. But and children are able to navigate this much better than adults. They seem not to worry about the things that adults worry about. And they should be free. What's the Latin word libre? Means three things. It means library. It means child. And it means freedom. The Latin word. So The word for freedom, child, and library were the same in Latin, same meaning.
Mhm.
And it's interesting how we've separated them in modern language to be different things. But I think it makes a lot of sense that children should be free, and that freedom should create some kind of learning process for them as they grow. And by giving things names, we think that we understand them, but very often it's more complicated than that, and history can help us with a lot of those examples. Right.